You're listening to the Geriatric Mamas Podcast with Jessica Raziri
and Sonia Tapley. So today we're going to be discussing different parenting styles and just kind of really dissecting them a little bit more and going over what each one means. There's a lot of them, by the way. Didn't realize. And we're not we're not even touching all of them that are out there. There's so many more, I'm sure, that are out there. We're just going to kind of hit some of like the big ones or the ones that we thought were big ones. And really just talk about what styles kind of feel the most natural to us personally. We're also going to recap. We're going to recap the show, The Parent Test on Hulu. It's a show that we actually, we'll get into that a little bit, but it's actually based off of an Australian show. It's the same production company. And so I accidentally found that show on YouTube, was obsessed with it. And then the US came out with their version called The Parent Test. So we're going to we've watched it, but we're going to go over that as well. And kind of recap it. We're going to do our best not to include any spoilers for those who haven't seen it, because it's a really good show. You should definitely watch it. And at the very least, it's entertaining. So we'll do our best not to have any spoilers. And if we do have any spoilers, then we'll just go back through and beep them out.
Right.
But yeah, so I think maybe like before we do that,
so
I know you wanted to kind of talk about, why does this even matter to us?
Right.
You were more about, did you read any books or anything before you had Annabelle?
When I was pregnant with Annabelle, I was just constantly Googling baby stuff in general. You know how your phone starts to kind of just read your mind and show you things because it knows that, apparently you're pregnant and about to have a baby when you've been Googling nursery stuff and, clothing and blah, blah, blah. So I was on Pinterest one night, Pinterest is where I land on everything. Basically, it's my favorite thing to do. Yeah. Like late at night.
Pinterest and the gram, all about it.
Right. Like late at night when you can't sleep, but you're not really stressed about anything. You just can't sleep. I just go on Pinterest because it occupies my time and I don't want to get off. So, so I stumbled upon this book called Raising Bébé. I don't know how to say that properly, but it's a French parenting book by this woman who I think she was born and brought up in the United States and then moves over to France, and she learns the French parenting style and kind of has to adapt to it because it's so strict, and that's a way of life in France, is the way that they raise their kids. So I actually thought it was really cool, really fun, really sophisticated, and intelligent. So I read the book twice via audiobook, and I thought that, I became obsessed with parenting styles, mainly French parenting style, but through that I ended up learning about the alternatives, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was going to raise my daughter the French parenting way. And then after I had Annabelle, things changed, and we'll go into that later. But I stumbled upon this show that was on, I think, YouTube or Amazon, and it was called Bringing Up Baby, and it was a British TV show about 3 or 4 major parenting styles. And I was sharing my obsession with Jessica about parenting styles. We were just talking about like some kids who, we knew either through the internet or like watching people from afar. We were talking about certain parenting styles. And so I decided to share my obsession with her, and I shared with her the show, Bringing Up Baby. And so of course, both of us are trying to find it to send each other the link, and so she can watch it. And it was gone. The show wasn't online anymore. You couldn't find it. You couldn't find information about it. There's one little blurb on Wikipedia about the show. And then from there...
I don't understand that. It's so annoying. I wonder if we're just being censored from it since it was a British show. Maybe the US is just being censored, because you know how they'll do that sometimes. So maybe we just can't find it.
That might be why. And then during the show, there was a lot of commentary about attachment parenting and it being inappropriate. And then at the end, in the Wikipedia blurb about it, it basically said that the more strict parenting style, it's not called strict, it's called something else, but the more strict parenting style was what raised eyebrows the most, because some of it was kind of cruel and borderline abusive. And the person in charge of, that's part of the show, her qualifications were in question. So I also wonder if it was canceled because of that. But long story short, through that show, through our search and our desperate quest to find
they were
that
chaining
show,
babies up in the attic and whipping their butts every night.
Basically, and we're going to get into that like a tiny bit later when we go through the shows. But so Jessica ended up finding Parental Guidance.
It was Parental Guidance was the Australian one.
Yes.
Well, before all of that, like just to kind of back up quite a bit for me because I feel like we're starting to kind of dive into this a little bit more. It's not that I was like anti-books or anything while I was pregnant. I don't know, like everything in me just kind of felt like I was just going to do what felt right. And I was just going to lean into whatever felt the most natural to me. Like my sister-in-law was all about the books. I know my cousin was all about the books. I knew that you had read a few things and I didn't read shit. I Googled stuff, as I was kind of figuring things out. And for me, I don't know, like my sister-in-law gave me a book. It made a very good coaster. Sorry, Rachel, if you're listening to this, I didn't open it once. And I just knew that for me, what felt right was to have him on me. What felt right is to answer him when he cries. The cry it out method to me felt cruel. I didn't like it. It didn't feel natural to me. And so I wasn't doing that. He would cry. I would respond. I wore him a lot. He slept in our room with us until, 7 months old? And even then, his room is connected by our closet. Like we designed his nursery to literally be basically still in our room. So like we leave the doors open in our closet and it's like, there's like a Murphy door. So it's like a hidden door to his room and that's just like open. So it's like, he's still kind of in our room. So when I say he's in his own room, not really. Right. But without even realizing it, I was actually doing the attachment style and I was actually, because that's what it is. So that's what sparked me, because in talking to Sonia and she's like, you're doing the attachment style. I'm like, what? And then I started researching it a little bit more and I'm like, wow, okay, cool. So, because I was wondering, because everything that people were telling me is like, no, you leave a baby crying, otherwise they're going to manipulate you and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And so I'm just like, I was kind of keeping it to myself because I was like, well, everybody's telling me I'm doing this wrong. So I'm just going to not tell them that I'm not listening to them. And then Sonia's the one that opened my eyes of like, no, you're actually doing this. It's called the attachment style. And so then I started researching that. And then that's when you were telling me about the show. And then I was looking for it because I was suddenly more interested, because I guess for me, I just assumed all of the books and all of the styles were just very rigid and very structured. And I just didn't want it to be like that. I just wanted it to be more of like, just come organically. Like every baby's different, they're all their own little individual little humans, and what's going to work for Hayden may not work for Annabelle, or what works for, another child. So yeah. So for me, I just, I feel like I'm going on a different tangent, but yeah. So for me, I think that's why I really got addicted to these shows and actually kind of leaning into or learning more about like the different styles, because then it really showed me that, okay, they're not all strict. They're not all really rigid. You can actually have fun, and what you're doing is actually a different style. And so that's
And once we were kind of like made aware of all the different parenting styles, it became so interesting. And finding the TV shows, I just wanted to keep watching. When we were in Dallas, Jessica and Adam turned on Parental Guidance for Mike and I, and we were just glued to the TV because it's so interesting. It's so good.
So to give a little recap of what that's about. So there's two. So the first one, I think it's the first one. I mean, it definitely to my understanding, came out before the US one. I don't know when the US started filming and when they decided to release it, but to my understanding, the Australian one came out first, and it's called Parental Guidance. And you can only find it on YouTube. You can only get like little 10, 15-minute snippets of it. So they'll show you like a couple of the challenges, but they won't show you like a full episode. And so we were just kind of going through and watching a few of the challenges. And so what they have is you have like a group of like different sets of parents, and they all have their own different styles of parenting. And so they'll basically, you have, on the Australian one, there was like the routine parents, there was, the attachment, there was the French style, there was a bunch of others. And so, they'll basically set up these different tests, and they'll put their kids in situations where, like, for example, they'll be on
real
a playground.
life situations.
Real life situations. And so, and there'll be like hidden cameras and everything. And it'll be like, okay, so here's this actor that's going to pretend to, they're going to go and they're going to approach your child, and they're going to say, hey, my dog just had puppies. Do you want to come see the puppies? And it's the stranger danger test. And there's a bunch of different challenges, but this is one that's like pretty intense to watch.
It's really intense.
Yeah. And so basically the idea is to see like what parenting style is the most effective when the parent isn't around. So which style sets the child up for the most success when they're on their own. And so
it's fascinating.
It's so fascinating, because what's interesting is like the styles that are just so rigid. Like you have the strict, and especially on the with the Australian show, because they really leaned right into whatever their style was. They fully 100% committed to each of their styles. And like, you know, like the discipline, the intensive, the structured, super structured ones, they all failed, and the kids would go off to go see the puppies. And I think it's because it's like, you're so structured, you're so strict, that the second that you have a little bit of like leeway, they're going to rebel, because that's just what happens when you keep somebody in a box. They want to jump out of the box. They want to go explore. Whereas the other styles like free range and natural, I think natural did what they're supposed to do, and attachment, their parenting styles, they're really big on like reenacting scenes, situations, and constantly having conversations and what to do in these scenes and everything. And they're really focused on emotions and building up confidence. And so the kids knew what to do. And they didn't go with the strangers. And so that's just an example of like some of like the challenges that they'll do. And there's a bunch of different ones, and it's just, and then you vote the couple parents off, and you can like be really judgy to like other people's parenting styles, which is like so fun.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we really got into it, and it was just like such a good show. And I was like, come on, I want it to be in the US. And then it finally came in the US, but, something that Sonia pointed out, that, because I couldn't put my finger on it, what was so different about it, is that the Australian version, they were all 100% committed to each of their styles. They were like through and through extreme with that one style.
It was very clear as to what the style was, and that so in the American show, there's like 12 different styles, whereas in the Australian, there's less styles. So there's less room for, you know, the gray area.
Right.
And so the 12 styles, it seems
it's almost
really
like on the American one, they were just like so saturated where they weren't 100% committed. So it's like you have like, you know, the discipline style, where I'm like, why am I liking the discipline parenting style on the US one? But then we started thinking about it like, well, because it's not 100% discipline, it's actually kind of mixed with new age, and it's actually mixed with a little bit of, I don't know, French maybe, but it had like, a bunch of different, like it had like, so each of the styles of the US, it's like, even though they're saying, well, we're this, it's like, right. Like even the, was it the free range parents, free range parenting style. They used to be helicopter parents. So it's like, are you really letting go of that completely? You know what I mean? Like you can't be a helicopter parent and then 100% let go of that and be like, oh, I'm just going to be a free range parent now. That doesn't work. There's no way.
It was clear that they were having a hard time completely letting go of the helicopter parent. I can't remember an exact example, but hey, that's why the show is there. You guys have to go watch.
Yeah.